what's up everybody? So it's time to take everything out of my 65 and the refugium and put it into the new 100-gallon SC Aquarium build that I have going on. If you haven't followed along, I'll leave a link. You can click on that and check out the other videos. Most of my plumbing is done. The only thing that I need to work on is my manifold, simply because I don't have the valves for it yet, but that'll be alright. So to do all this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it all done in one day, simply because I had to work all day. It's about 6 o'clock here at night. So I'm going to get as much done as I can. All the live, corals and fish and some of the live rock are going to be going into a few of these, which are just simple, like 25-gallon, Rubbermaids. I got 3 or 4 of them laying around. I also got some 5-gallon buckets, and basically the water's not going far. It's going from there to right there. So whatever I don't finish tonight, I'm going to drop some air stones and some power heads in those Rubbermaid bins to give it some flow, some oxygen, catch maybe 5 or 6 hours of sleep, wake up the next morning, and start slowly adding stuff into the tank. So without further ado, let's get this.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now. Let's begin now.
Alright, so we're chugging along. As you can see, right here, most of the water is pretty much drained out of the tank. Got all my livestock in my bins. There's some in there. I got that grate over it so my clowns and whatever fish don't jump out. I got some live rock and a few pieces of coral in here, and the remainder of the live rock as well as most of the water. Now, I did use some of the old sand out of the 65, and I have my own reasons for that. Basically, I was a little nervous because I'm going to be adding probably about 35 gallons or so to this tank to bring it up to the level that it's needed, and I don't want the cycle to kind of restart. So in my mind I said, okay, buy 80 pounds or so of brand new sand, or use maybe 2 gallons or so of the old sand, which I don't think is going to be an issue. I know phosphates might run a little higher because I'm using old sand, but that sand also has beneficial bacteria in it, which the tank's going to need to kind of get going still, even though I'm using most of the water from the 65. So on top of that sand, I used about maybe 2 of these, spreaded that along the bottom, and I dumped in some Fiji pink sand on top, and I'm going to start putting some water back in there so it doesn't dry out too much. So that's my next step of where I'm at. After that is done, I'm just going to continuously pump water into the tank, get that water in that tank, and like I said earlier in the video, if I need to keep some of the livestock in these bins overnight, that's a little bit less of my worry right now. They're going to have flow, they're going to have some air stones, they'll be completely fine for 5-6 hours or so. So let's keep this thing rolling.
Let's begin now.
Alright, so everything's out of the old tank, with the exception of just, some snail shells or whatnot. The new tank I got filling. As you can see, it's gonna be a while, but that's all good. I like doing everything slow because I've had way too many mishaps with forgetting that a pump's on or something, and I walk away for a few minutes, I come back and there's water just, you know, all over the floor. So basically the way that I have it set up right now is I have a pump in basically this bucket, which is pretty much just nothing but water with the exception of maybe that one piece of live rock, but I'm not too, you know, worried about that one. Everything else that's in there is just snails, which I'll pick out once we get low. Basically my theory on that is that there's not enough water in that jug, obviously, to overflow the tank. So I can go off, I can work on other things like maybe dismantling the other tank, the skimmer, the reactor, all that kind of stuff. And once I hear that pump suck dry, I know to move that pump over to another bucket and keep pumping water in. So we're going to kind of continue that pattern right now and just keep this thing rolling.
What up?
Alright, so while that other tank's filling, I figured it'd be a good time to kind of go through some of the stuff that I'm taking out. As you probably just saw me jiggling with wires for a little bit. Basically what that all is all my Apex stuff, which was not the cleanest, and I kind of just kept on routing wires. So that's going to have to wait until I can move this tank out of the way. But as you can see underneath, I did get my skimmer removed, I did get my return punt removed, which I do have an extra, so all that stuff can kind of soak overnight. My probes I got to pull out of there. Most of the plumbing is pretty much taken apart. And basically my main stuff, with the exception of the auto top off, which I'm still trying to get the wires out of that, I can actually connect to the other tank for the time being until I get time to, you know, run them through the wall and into the closet where I'm going to have kind of the control panel. But it was a good time while the other tank was filling. It's filling slowly. That's fine. It gives me a chance to do other stuff around this tank and get this one the hell out of here and put it up for sale. So follow along. Let's keep it rolling. All right, so we're about halfway full, and ended up, putting the fish in for now because just running low on water basically, and I can't really take much more out of that because that has all, pretty much all my coral with the exception of the stuff that is grown on the rocks, like the bigger rocks. All the bigger rocks and pieces are actually in the tank to hopefully kind of bring that water volume up a little bit. You can see they're kind of freaking out. I'm sure that water is not the cleanest right now, so what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to try to get, right now I'm going to hit a stopping point, and I'm actually going to get the reactor, somehow kind of rig something up for overnight to kind of keep, carbon and GFO kind of running through it throughout the night. And then tomorrow morning, probably, go down, get some new fresh water, and, fill up maybe 10 or 15 gallons at a time, let it sit, and kind of just let it keep going through its thing. So it's now getting a little bit late, so I'm going to call it quits for the night. But what I did get going is, as you can see, I got a, just wedged the reactor behind some rock right now. Got it on a very slow kind of, flow going, and I think that'll be alright. Let it go overnight to kind of help just kind of keep some phosphates and whatever down, help polish that water a little bit since it's so stirred up. I did run my MP40 kind of just through the wall for now, so that's giving it, it's on very light right now, so I don't want to blow anything around, but that is going to be going on all night, and just let that go. All the other corals inside this seem to be doing just fine. Nothing really, they're going to be pretty shocked. I put a power head in there for some flow, and the other tank is, with the exception of an inch or two of water in it, is pretty much drained. I'll take care of that tomorrow. All of my Apex stuff is broken down. As you can see, there's wires and pretty much crap everywhere. But for 4 or 5 hours is about what it took me, and doing it by myself is pretty rough, but it went decent. I didn't have any major errors, and we'll knock on wood for that, make sure, and we'll check back in tomorrow. Alright everyone, so this is the last little clip. Everything's looking good. I got everything in the tank, as you can see here. Put all the corals in, and the aquascape I haven't really messed with. I just kind of put that rock in blind when I was doing it. But the clowns are doing alright, firefish are doing okay. Some of the corals are starting to pop up a little bit. I have both my lights mounted. Just got to do a little bit more with the cables. Majority of the cable work is routed through the wall, as you can see here. I moved my reactor down into the sump for now until I can mount it, or it might just stay there. It doesn't really bother me. I'll probably do something a little bit better with the cord management though, so it's not looking so bad. The skimmer is starting to pull some stuff even after a 24-hour vinegar bath. This is running wide open, so I haven't tuned that at all. So once I'll do that, give it a few more hours and start messing with it. But just a little bit, look at some of the corals. They're, doing okay. Acros are not coming up too good. But these just got put in this morning, maybe about 15-20 minutes ago. So I'm thinking that it's, taking time for them to acclimate to the new lights. Before I was running Ocean Revive T247s, and now I'm running two Gen 3 XR15 Pros. So they're, just running at about 20%, I believe, to let them get acclimated. The hippo tang is finally starting to come out a little bit. It was completely, gone for the last 2 days when I was doing all this, which is pretty much expected. So I'm hoping that everything else will start to, come out as they get acclimated to the lights. I won't really mess with the lights for intensity wise for probably another couple days. Really let them get settled in and acclimated to those lights. As for the other tank, it is completely broken down. All the sand, the water, everything is out. That's going to be getting moved out of here today, and then it's pretty much just cleanup time, and start maybe messing with rock. I'm probably going to give it maybe a week and just let stuff settle in before I start messing with it too much right now. I know everything's probably pretty stressed out, so I don't want to cause any unnecessary harm to them, and they're starting to come out now, so let them get used to this water and the new tank, and then I'll start slowly doing pieces of aquascape, maybe one side at a time. So we'll check in a few more after a couple weeks. I'll do an update on it and see how everything's rolling. Thanks for watching.